fisherman's post. More fish, more often.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Fisherman's Post Saltwater Podcast Series. This episode is titled Lead Addiction, Everything About Lead Sinkers. And I'm going to be talking to Aaron Abbott of AAA Pier Gear. We're going to be talking about lead styles, lead applications, how to know how much lead, and then how the wrong lead can cause lost fish. My name is Gary Hurley of Fisherman's Post. Fisherman's Post has been serving the saltwater fishing community since 2003. We've been bringing you fishing reports, fishing information, fishing tournaments, fishing schools. And here in our latest and greatest effort, the Fisherman's Post Saltwater Podcast Series, and it is in this series that we reach out to our captain and guide friends up and down the North Carolina coast and ask them to share with us their insights, their knowledge on how to catch more fish more often. And in this endeavor, every episode, I'm joined with my podcast partner, Billy Thorpe of Thorpe Creative. Welcome to yet another episode, Billy, yet another triple-digit number episode.
Triple digits, man. I like the sound of that, Gary. So, yeah, we're in the 100s now, so we'll see if we can make it to 200, unless you fire me before then for all the tech stuff.
If anyone's getting fired around here, it's me.
Hey, well, you can read my hat the correct way now. Thanks to Steven, who left a comment on our YouTube channel a few weeks ago that I was in mirrored mode and running a blog, video blog. I should know better. And it's actually called a video podcast, but I'm not going to get into the semantics. It doesn't really matter. But anyway, but it was a good catch because I did fix it for this video. But anyway, Gary, super fun. Love our community that they get to, comment and do fun things like that. So feel free to leave us some more comments and
send us your resume, Steven.
Send us your resume.
Send your resume.
Steve, and don't be Karen. I mean, Steven. But anyway.
Don't be sensitive.
I know. Well. All right. So anyway, let's get back on track here before I go sideways and talk about our sponsors who make this episode possible. We got Bland Landscaping Company. So a Bland Landscaping Company is located in North Carolina, and they have a lot of different opportunities for people looking for a new career. Not really a job, but a career. They got a lot of benefits on their website. So go to blandlandscaping.com/careers and see if that is something that you would like to take part in. And Gary, they got a lot of good benefits, as I mentioned every episode, because they're very enticing. Maybe I want to make a career change from podcaster to landscaping. And they do some big projects too. So you can go check their website out. So we appreciate those guys being a part of the show again in 2022.
Yeah, man. Love being affiliated with them. They fit well with us, with our podcast community, and certainly hope we're helping them find quality people for that quality company.
That's right, man. And speaking of quality companies, we got Marine Warehouse Center, which has been with us since episode number 5. I get a quick word from them, and we'll be right back.
At Marine Warehouse, we have everything. We have new boats, we have parts, we have accessories, new trailers, we have a complete service department with highly trained technicians. Anything you need to get out on the water, we have it.
At Marine Warehouse Center, as we've grown over the last few years, now have a large section of marine supplies from start to finish for all your boating needs.
What I love about this region is to be able to get out on the water, and also we love to be able to get you out on the water.
The best part of working at Marine Warehouse is being able to get involved with the customers and share a love for the water.
So
They walk it, man. They're tight. Big fans of Marine Warehouse Center. They take care of the Fish Post boat. Got me set up for another season.
all right.
And I just enjoy stopping by there. I mean, it was fun to drop the boat off. It was fun to check in on it. And it was fun to pick it up, man. Good conversations all the time. Lots of buzz, lots of activity going on there. And for good reason.
Yeah, man, they stay busy and making sure everybody's boat's taken care of for the season. If you haven't done that, be sure to go over there and let them take a look at it if you got something going on, because it is the season. You should be on the water, fishing, doing all those fun things. Maybe you see Gary out there, wave at him, hunt him down, and maybe ask Gary to tell you one of Terrell's jokes. I imagine you'd be okay with that.
You should go straight to Terrell. You should not ask me to tell Terrell. I mean, I do it for the podcast, but beyond that, you want to go straight to Terrell. And I don't even know if you call this a joke. This is more of a saying. You can tell me. So Terrell was feeling like he just wanted to give a saying this week. Here's Terrell's saying, not mine. Wise man say, making a boat out of stone would be a hardship.
I
A hard
I agree. That's funny.
ship.
That's funny, Gary. Good for Terrell. Terrell, thanks for submitting that. I'll look forward to next week. Moving on quickly. I'm going to show you a fish picture to rebound from that terrible segment, Gary. Here's Nick Bodner of Holly Springs. Caught and released this 32-inch red drum using cut pinfish while fishing the surf in Topsail Beach. Good looking fish there. 32 inches. All right. What do you think about that fish, Gary? What's your first reaction?
Man, I love catching red drum from the surf, man. Red drum from the beach is special. And, kudos to that dude. I mean, every year I say I'm gonna do more surf fishing, and then every year I don't. So maybe this is my year. Maybe, because I am certainly enamored by it. It goes back to my roots, to love our surf fishing tournaments or surf fishing anglers. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why I don't get out there and do more surf fishing. It's only my fault.
Because you have a boat that Marine Warehouse took care of for you, so you feel obligated. They did all that hard work.
50 or so captain buddies.
50 years. Yeah, right. Why would I go surf fishing when that's too much work for Gary? It's too much work. However, if you are interested in getting some updated fishing reports, we're going to tell you a little bit more about that toward the end of the show, so stick around because we are launching a new project, Gary. Super excited about it. That's anybody can be a part of it and get some updated information along the coast of North Carolina. So
signups are hot, man. We have clearly, our vision for this is clearly resonating. We will say more about it. You can also see more on the website, and we've made a little pitch, separate video. But yeah, man, it's very promising. It seems like people are responding well to our new concept.
Yeah, man, it's going to be great. Excited for it. But until then, I'll let you talk about lead, Gary. I'll let you get the lead out of your you-know-what and start working here.
Hey, Terrell. All right, Billy's best takeaway. In the next 30 minutes, you're going to learn more about sinkers than you thought was possible.
All right.
And so it should be no challenge for Billy's best takeaway. But right now, yes, it is my pleasure. Longtime friend, longtime fishing school instructor. This guy comes out for the love of teaching, for the love of being a fishing ambassador, and he gets rave reviews every year, man. One of the most popular instructors we have in the school circuit, and I'm talking about Aaron Abbott, currently of AAA Pier Gear. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Gary. I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought for some reason. The taste of lead, nothing like it.
Aaron, that alone should qualify you for question number 1, but unfortunately, you still have to go through the process of 2 questions. Sucking on a lead sinker is a approved answer to number 1, but I'm still going to ask why. Why should this podcast audience of ours listen to what you have to say about lead, about sinkers, about fishing, about anything, Aaron?
I think they must be really bored, Gary.
All right. Aaron, question number 2.
Take this off your hands here. Lead. Lead is like the application of lead, and what we've been doing with lead for years has never really came with an instruction booklet. We go out and for castability and range, we'll put on a 4-ounce sinker and let her hurl, or we have a tendency to try to take too much control of our fishing conditions and not allowing ourselves or the sinker itself to put us in the position for getting the bite. And without that bite, what are we fishing for? Or what are we catching? Usually nothing.
Man, now you've got me. Now you've got me hooked. But as tradition goes, you still have to answer question number 2. So lead, the word lead is a homograph, as in a word that's spelled the same but differs in pronunciation. There's another difference, but I'm focusing tonight on a word spelled the same but differs in pronunciation. I've got some homographs for you. You give me the alternate pronunciation. This is like a quiz. Bow, and you would say
What do you
bow.
want me to answer? I'm sorry. Let me get
You
this
would
right.
say the other
Bow.
pronunciation of these homographs. So if I say
Okay,
bow,
very good.
the answer would
Okay.
be bow. I've got 3 more.
Yes, sir. Okay, I got you now. It's the
Bass.
pronunciation.
I say bass, you say
Blast. Bose.
Base.
bass.
Aaron,
I say,
I'll help you. Just move your mouth. I'll say it. You just move your
all
mouth.
right, Billy, you can participate too. I say, this one's a tough one. Unfortunately, they get harder. I say minute, you say
Minot.
minute, small. This is going over great. This is my best one yet. I say wound, you say
Wound.
yes. All right, enough of that. Aaron,
I don't know.
tell me more about lead than I ever wanted to hear.
Well, what can we say? Let me see. Well, I guess the main purpose of
Styles.
this will be what? I'm sorry, what, Gary?
I said
Different
in my
styles
show
of
notes,
lead.
I have you might start talking about styles.
All right, you're exactly right. I'm sorry to keep you out of that loop there. We have different styles of lead for different positions to grip, of course, in the sand and in the substrate. I have all kinds of shells out here to kind of give us an idea of what we're trying to hang up here. And we have your classic pyramid sinker. And this is like a tongue or a bullfrog. And this is a bank style sinker right here, often used in different applications here. So first of all, we typically try to use bank sinkers, or we use these in places where we want our bait to move a little bit more than normal. And for that, people is just blown out of the water. What do you mean, my bait to move? You want your bait to move slightly with the current, and as well to give you an opportunity to fish an entire area versus a specific zone. Now, of course, once you find that specific zone, you can go ahead and target that by positioning and using the waves and other factors to put you in the hole to catch fish. But what we often do is, by using too much lead, we don't allow our bait, our rig, to make proper presentation by being able to go into these indentations in the sand and on the bar. So if we're not allowing the sinker to catch on these things, then obviously we want them to move slowly. So we want to pan an area going from left to right or right to left, and we can use this to our advantage. The other option is taking a sinker and saying, I'm going to cast out there, and it's going to stay there. Otherwise, I'm going to add more lead and more lead and more lead. This does nothing but create more chaos for you. It also makes it a whole lot easier for the fish to take your bait.
So if we're talking about, so these are more styles for the surf. So what would be the main difference between the pyramid and the, I think you call bullfrog tongue sinker?
Yeah, this application, typically we're going to go with a lighter style. Usually with our bullfrogs, we're going to have a application where we'll be using a Carolina rig or a sliding sinker system, to where we could take advantage of the fact that we're going to have the weight transfer is going to be taken away by our line going out. So we'll implement these types of sinkers on a sliding sinker system. We could also use the pyramids in a sliding sinker application or a Carolina rig application. But typically, if you're going to go ahead and stick it in there, then just do it right. Once we get back over into our bank sinkers, typically when you're trying to fish around oyster beds and or a lot of bottom that has a lot of semi-structure like oyster beds, etc., clam beds, or just sheer rock or clay, this can often keep you from losing too many rigs. So these different styles can help you fish in certain locations, trying to achieve what we would consider a fishable presentation. In order to achieve a fishable presentation, you basically have to have the castability and range, which is brought about by your equipment and the lead you're going to use. If I was going to go out here and fish right now and the water's a little bit rough and I had to use a 2 ounce, I could often go ahead and go to a 3 ounce bank sinker if I didn't have that 2 ounce for a little bit more movement. But it's like I say, it's one extreme to the other. Once we go ahead and start using this much lead compared to this much lead, the amount of fish in your cooler grows up very, very, very much, because they're having the ability to come into a rising tide, aggressively feed, and not feel that big chunk of lead, which is unnatural to them. Why else would you go up and grab a hold of a pound of weight and not let go when you know the wave's going out? So obviously these fish are more lead sensitive than we've ever thought they would be. And that's not the ones that are this big, because everybody catches those. We like the ones that are this big. They're easier to clean, and they're a lot of fun to catch. And if you want to release them, you can release them, but you get a lot of good table fare that way.
So, of course, I have a couple of follow-ups, sort of the nature. So how is it, I'll go start with, how is it that the bank sinker will help you not lose rigs? I guess I didn't quite get, I think you made the connection, but I didn't quite get the connection.
The application of the bank sinker on the inside or inside shoreline and marsh is that you can cast this up near rocky areas, and this will simply slide out of those oysters instead of some of these other sinkers, which offer a lot of grip and different edges to catch on those rocks in order to break you off. So if you have already lost one of these because of structure in an area you're fishing, the application of the bank sinker may help you prevent any more loss and keep your catchability still without losing more rigging.
So I don't know if I'm jumping the gun by asking you about application right now, but I'm definitely in on this conversation. Like, you got me. So my audience, I know, likes specifics. So maybe some specific scenarios, like species types or type of fishing where the pyramid is your go-to, or, you know, or maybe we're talking conditions and we're more than as just as much as we're talking species. But maybe just walk me through one by one and like your favorite application of that particular sinker, both species and a conditions conversation, I guess.
Perfect. Yeah, we can go through that. That'd be absolutely perfect, because what we're trying to achieve by using lead is we're trying to, of course, target species in an area in which they're feeding, close to shore, by using lighter rods and lighter tackle to maximize our efficiency of how to catch these fish. Now, typically with red fish, they are not tackle shy. They often desire good fresh bait, just like any other fish, but they're not extremely tackle shy. When we get into other smaller species, like black drum, sheep's head, their sensitivity to lead is incredible. You literally have to fish practically nothing for these fish, because you don't want to give them the ability to pull off and remove your bait. By the application of using a smaller bank, this will be a 3 ounce and it's rough, but I'm not wanting this to go out and stay in a specific position. I want this to be put into a position to where it can move. And by having a bank sinker on sand and or semi-rocky or shell bottom, it allows this to move slightly, because I don't want this to stay in the same area. It doesn't improve my odds to stay in one specific area when I can have a movement of being able to fish an entire zone until I have actually found the fish. Then I can do more specific targeting for those fish. But generally, pompano, trout, they are all light lead, maximum 1.5 to 2 ounce bank sinker. Once you start having to go to these other applications, the amount of tackle you are using to try to fish with becomes non-beneficial, and in actuality goes downhill pretty fast.
So what would you say would be like one of the main scenarios? And it seems like we're talking mostly surf and pier, although certainly these applications, I like you point out grass banks inside, but it seems to be more applicable to the surf and pier community. What's one style of fishing or species of fish where people so often just want to hold bottom when they should be wanting that bait to move around?
It really comes down to a lot of redfish and a whole lot of black drum, even sea moths. All these bigger fish have a canning and knowing ability and knowledge to know that they don't want to be connected to something that they can't swim away from. So, there's a chain of resistance that we build across from our rod in our hand to our bait on the bottom. And it's so important to be able to provide this in a light lead scenario, so that your more lead sensitive fish, like your speckled trout and or some of your mullets and black drum and red drum, they can all be very lead sensitive. I can seriously sit down and fish a 1 ounce sinker in the same area, put a 2 ounce sinker on there, throw it right back out there using the same bait, and not have even close to, or if any, success, just by changing the amount of lead that I'm using.
Okay. And I follow that. Now, when's a scenario where in general, because there is no absolute, I don't think, in general, you want that bait holding still. You don't want it to move. I know you alluded to once you find a zone, maybe you want to just put it right in that zone and not have it move. But what else am I not thinking of when I would absolutely be trying to have that bait holding tight where I lay it?
Right. I mean, typically whenever you're going to go ahead and want to put something into place, and for more than 5 to 10 minutes of holding time, maybe less, maybe more, you're going to have to be highly aggressive, using different styles in order to pull into that sand and to go ahead and loosen up that drag as far as you can on your reel, so that you've anchored this bait to the bottom, but the line going through this sliding sinker system or your main line will be able to freely go out, so you can have the ability to use heavy lead by positioning yourself and offsetting that by the amount of drag. If you loosen up your drag enough back here, so that this can be pulled away without the complete resistance of this sinker.
All right. So you just led me to another question. And listen, at any time, if you want to take over this podcast and push it more in the direction you had to imagine with those notes, then please do so. But listen to you talk about sliding sinker systems. I think people have the question about what's the best sliding sinker system? What's the pros and cons of just a standard Carolina rig versus, something plastic, metal that we slide over? I mean, what are your thoughts on sliding sinker systems?
This is one of, I had stayed away from Carolina rigs for a long time as I was introduced to saltwater fishing, mostly on piers. And in order to overcome the smaller fish's ability to remove my bait before the larger fish could see the activity and then react and come to it, or the scene of what's going on, I needed to have longer soak time, and I had to have bait on the hook longer in order to initiate the bigger bite from the bigger fish. And the only way that I could do that would be to put in the scenario of, if I anchor this to the bottom, then I cause enough resistance for the fish to merely come and pluck the bait off the hooks without much difficulty at all. But I discovered when you use less and less lead, these secondary fish, be for your primary fish, does not have a chance to remove this bait. And so by the time these fish get to this bait, it has suffered very little loss. Putting yourself in the position of going through those first few fish, trying to peck away at your stuff, and allowing the fish you want to catch to actually get on your rig and you can catch it. And having that ability to do that is light lead.
I love this concept. I don't think it's ever crossed my mind. So yeah, if that bait is holding fast, then it's easier to rip it off. If that bait is more free to move around, then you can't rip it off. You can just move the bait around. I mean, I'm enjoying the insight. I'm not quite sure. I'm going to follow up with my question. I'm going to circle you back around to my question, but I love the answer. And I already know my Billy's best takeaway, but we still have more podcasts to go. So are you now of the frame of mind where Carolina rig can work just fine? Or are you still using instruments such as what you were just holding up for the sliding sinker system? Or are there pluses and minuses of both?
Well, I have tried them all, especially these different type of attachments that we see. I'm sure you had mentioned a minute ago, there is a type that you can swivel over on top of your main line. But one of the most important uses of these things is of course, is to decrease the resistance at the hook and increase the resistance of what you have holding on the bottom without sacrificing too much resistance for this fish to be able to get your bait off. This is made for braid. If you don't get the ones that you are designed for braid, then you will find out quickly that the other ones won't last very long and you'll end up losing your lead. Another very important part of using these is you will see a lot of them with white, and you will see a lot of them with silver. Once you get into some of these bigger Hatteras blues, or some even typically or bigger blues, they have a tendency to hit the silver and cut you off. A lot of times, especially in the spring, it's so important to have nothing shiny except your hook on your rigging, especially for bluefish. Once we start beefing things up to the point to where we're using bigger rods, then sometimes our capability of being able to target these species at 1 ounce or 1.5 ounce, etc., becomes very difficult. But in order to get the bite, you have to position yourself where the fish are going to come at you, actively feeding with a nice rising tide. I always love fishing the rising tide because it's food coming on the kitchen table. These fish are going to aggressively come out of the troughs and cuts, and smaller bait are going to try to stay as shallow as possible. And they do that by swimming as close as they can until they can't swim anymore. Then these other fish come in and tactically pick them off one by one. So when these fish come in, they're aggressively feeding, but their intent is to come in and to go out. And anything that interferes or offers hesitation is your enemy. So you can literally be in an entire school of black drum and be using 3 ounces and lose your bait the entire time.
All right, Aaron, with all this talk about making sure we're not over leading, that we're having the right lead, I'm guessing you've given some thought and you have some guidance, as far as like your technique, your tactics, or your tricks for that matter, of how to determine what is the minimum amount of lead, or what is the right amount of lead. Like, help us out with deciding what is the best to toss out.
Well, the best to toss out is what is going to give you the range and castability matching your rod. If you're using a 6 to 8 foot rod, which can typically be used in applied and surf fishing applications anywhere from a 2500 to 5000 series rod, that's going to give you the ability to use less lead. But once you start using bigger gear, your lead usage is going to go up substantially because of the diameter of your line, and the amount of resistance and or wind and or water being pushed against your line, as far as tide and everything else. But overall, the more lead that you use, the less fish that you're going to catch. And that's going to hurt a lot of people's feelings, because obviously people in this world have caught fish off of using a 16-ounce sinker, preferably offshore. But the catch rates are not that pretty. So I've been doing this and studying lead and its usage for years, because obviously it's the repercussions of its abuse, misuse, and can often and tremendously affect what you actually put in a cooler if you are going to catch fish. So typically, these are the loss rate guidelines I've typically found in all my years of saltwater fishing, and the application of sinkers being used specifically in the sand and in the sound. When I've used 4-ounce sinkers, I have a 70% loss rate. When I use a 3-ounce sinker, I have a 60% loss rate. When I have a 2-ounce sinker, I have a 50-50 chance of getting this fish. And when I throw a 1-ounce sinker, I have a 75% chance of catching that fish. Because by dialing down my lead, I have improved the amount of time in which my bait is going to be available for a larger predator. The more lead that I have used as I start at the top of my 70% loss rate means that these smaller fish are having the ability to remove your bait from your hook before you even know what's going on. Now, tactically, are you using bigger systems and everything else? The application is going to require that you use more lead. But if you have a situation to where you're using 3 and 4 ounces of lead and you're losing bait and you're not catching fish, you can take your 6.5 foot, 7 foot rod with 10 to 12 pound braid or monofilament, go out there with a 1 ounce, 1.5 ounce lead usage on any style of rig, and your success rate is going to go through the roof. Because with the ability to keep your bait on the hook longer, that's going to provide these larger fish the opportunity to get your bait. Most of the time, there's nothing left after the first 5 seconds of your bait hitting the water. You have people who want to cast out and let it sit for 15 minutes. I don't advise that. Maybe there are situations which I don't fish in every day. Typically, I use rod holders and everything else, but I try to keep the rod out of my hands a lot of times, because once I get involved, it's something else to make things more difficult in keeping these fish from getting away and allowing them to hook themselves.
All right. So I'm going to guess that some people are listening to the suggestion to go light and thinking, I can't catch fish if my rig is just washed up on the beach. And what's the answer to that?
Well, the answer to that is that application is just something that's not going to work. Typically the scenario is we have about 3 to 4 feet of tide here in the Outer Banks. At low tide, you're standing there, and at high tide, there's 3 feet of water there. So as we fish these incoming tides, the smaller lead allows you to dig and get into more of these crevices and to take advantage of them. Your lead typically will not sweep up onto the beach unless it has already passed through the trough or number of sloughs. And there is a tipping point to where if the wind's blowing 25 miles an hour out of the southwest and there's a current rip, well, guess what? No amount of lead is going to save you. But knowing when to give up or how much to actually apply, if you have some rolling towards you, change your angle. Or, hey, go up to the next ounce. But you have to understand that once you do that, your catch rate is going to be cut in half. And that's just how that factors in. You will lose more bait. You also have an opportunity to introduce your bait to a lot more bait fish, the more lead you're using. So people need to understand that, making that 30 to 60 yard cast may really be all you need. A lot of people are very concerned about being able to make that 250 or 300 yard shot. Hey, there are applications for that. I'm not talking about that. I want to be able to actively present their dinner in the lightest form possible and available for them to come and pick up when they're ready to come. And being able to target these species by using the least amount of lead allows me to take advantage of the bite that have been given me already, which I have already lost. And I'm sure I've lost many more fish than I'll ever catch, obviously. But the application of lead will make a significant difference in how, where, and your success in fishing anywhere, from rivers to anything. I mean, it goes across the board.
Man, I follow that. I think that's a great answer. What I guess I have at least a couple questions, but I think before I just throw these sort of random off topic questions at you, I would come at you because you did have that sheet of notes and you do teach regular at the schools, and I think you've got some other things going. What else is on your notes, man? What have I not set you up that you thought this would be good information to share in a podcast about lead?
Well, the most important thing about me doing this is being able to show people how they can be successful in these situations and applications, because the sheer fact that people are not going out and not enjoying themselves and not catching fish in these areas where there are fish because they are having issues with the style and the presentation for their success. People who are not successful are not going to be interested in fishing. They're not going to be the ones who stand up and or fight and or put money into the system for education and for keeping our beaches healthy. So my main thing is like, how can I help your viewers and anyone that I have an opportunity to teach to dodge a whole lot of these bullets of figuring out these problems over years of experience. This has taken 30 years of experience to figure this out. And I was often told, use the least amount of lead as possible, but I never applied it until around, I think it was 2015, to where I went ahead and switched over and fished 1 ounce of lead on bottom rigs in the surf zone at Oceana Pier for 6 weeks. During that 6 weeks, I caught more fish than I had in my entire lifetime. Trophies, larger fish that I couldn't even get on the deck, and some that I did, obviously. But the fact was that if I did not dial down my gear to where I had the ability to make a lighter presentation, then I wasn't going to get that bite. There wasn't going to be that fish of a lifetime, because going out with 75-pound braid off the pier and in the surf is not going to do you any good. It's going to just cause this trickle down of you adding more lead and more resistance and more problems and decreasing your catchability and your success in fishing in a saltwater application, as well as fish love it everywhere. They just don't like feeling something in their face for some reason.
So unless you tell me otherwise, I'm going to call that our final thought of this podcast. But again, I'm happy to set you up one more time. Look over those notes and let me know, Aaron, anything else to add to this lead conversation.
No. Do you have anything in I do not. I think we've covered everything as much as we can cover at this point. Of course, we could get into using some decent hooks, but it all ties together for now.
Well, we can come back another time and talk about hooks. We can come back another time and talk about bait. I mean, we'd love to have you back on the show. And no, man, I think your final thought, I mean, I know you've echoed that at the schools as well, man. Get people caring, get them successful, and they'll care more. And that's what we all want. We want people to be stewards of the resource. So my final question for you is, Aaron, tell me a little bit about AAA bait. AAA Pier gear before we say goodbye.
Oh, AAA Pier gear has been in the works for around 16 years. Once I started coming down to the beach all the time, I had a lot of disappointing events with some of the rigs that I had purchased from the stores. It was okay when I was catching smaller fish, but once I started catching bigger fish, then I started to see these flaws in gear and losing big fish. And there's only a certain number of years of therapy that can take away all that pain and anguish from losing the fish of a lifetime. But the only thing that you really can do is bring yourself more to a successful position in order to get the application and to, be able to enjoy this resource, which I'm so proudly been able to do. AAA Pier gear basically is a lot of hand-tied rigs for lots of applications from surf all the way out to offshore. Those rigs are going to be offered in the next upcoming months through a purveyor in which I've already chosen. I'm going to have one central location here in Beaufort at one of our higher end marinas. And then, of course, we're always messing with bait. You gotta love being the bait guy sometimes. It's always a fun job. A lot of people counting on you. But, I just can't say it enough, or thank you for giving me the platform and the opportunity to talk about something that I love. Fishing is a 1,000-piece puzzle, and the pieces change every day, and we jump back in it and tear it apart, and we try to put it back together. And so for that, I'm grateful.
Well, I'm glad to hear you think you benefit from a relationship. I know I benefit from it. So I love when it's mutual, man. And Aaron, I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation about lead. At first thought, it's the old a podcast about lead, really? And sure enough, if it hadn't been you, I might have been a little bit more skeptical. But I appreciate it, Aaron, and we'll stay in touch. And yeah, man, we'll have you back for a hook conversation, a bait conversation. We'll find a reason.
Gary, I do have one more thing if you have time. I will be offering charters this year at Chasing Tails Outdoors. People can reach out to Chasing Tails Outdoors for those days of availability.
That surf pier charters, is that what we're talking about, or on the water?
Yeah, surf fishing.
Right on. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. Love Chasing Tails. Glad that you're there. And man, Aaron, we will stay in touch for sure.
It's always a pleasure, Gary. Thank you very much for having
Thanks,
me.
man. Billy, what'd you get, man? You just heard more about lead at one time than you've ever heard about lead. Yeah, I've already given my best takeaway.
In my entire life, I've never heard anything about it. You know what? I just go to a tackle store. I see all this lead. I'm like, well, whatever. I'll just grab one and go. And then I just pop it off the line several times and I go home. But I took a page of notes. I take notes. Some people call me bull crapper, but I take them because I want to learn. That's why I'm here. Whatever. But yeah, man. So he said it so many times, like more lead equals less fish. And so I never really thought about the correlation of, which maybe I should. I mean, it's kind of common sense when you think about it, of like weight of tackle, rod, reel, line in correspondence with the right amount of weight, area, all that kind of stuff. But didn't even know what a bank sinker was called. Didn't know it's called a bank sinker. So I learned a lot. I mean, I wrote down the percentages and everything. So I'm like, cool. I'm gonna go back to North Carolina, confident that I can do a little bait fishing and be better at it. Because honestly, I suck at fishing and bait fishing in particular. So.
Yeah, I think. I said my takeaway, like if the fish can swim around with that bait, then he can't pull it off the hook. If the bait is locked to the weight, then he can pull it off. And then the other thing, just listening to Aaron talk, it's that, he's he's an ambassador at heart, a teacher at heart for sure. And he's also just got the spirit of a tournament angler. I mean, the way it's all about odds, playing the best odds, making decisions based on the best odds at every step of the rig, at every step of the process. And I mean, that's a pretty cool way to be analytical when it comes to fishing, because we're out there to have a good time, but you want, sometimes you want some fish in the cooler and play the odds, man. It is an odds game in so many ways.
Yeah, man, I've said it before on these shows, man. These guys are more than just fishermen. I mean, they're like scientists, dude. They're figuring this stuff out. I mean, he's writing percentages, collecting data for 30 years, and you can't really snub your nose at 30 years worth of data. So I appreciate him coming on and sharing that. And hopefully you guys learned as much as I did, because I'm going to be, messing around and trying those different size weights, as opposed to, I mean, I literally, Gary, would just like grab one weight and just like go to the surf and then be pissed when I couldn't catch anything. So this is really good, because it's my world where I live the most, on the surf. So appreciate you bringing on another great guest, Gary. Good job. You get to stay another week. I'll see you next week.
All right, man. Hey, and don't forget, weekly fishing reports. We are close. As we approach April, we are approaching the start of the Fisherman's Post weekly inshore fishing reports. We're going back to our roots when the paper used to be weekly only. Weekly fishing reports will be offered online only, not in print form, online only, and they will be behind a paywall. A lot of effort, a lot of energy, and some cost as well to bring this to you. And what I said at the show start is true. Sign-ups going great. At following our 2 fishing schools, a post on Instagram and Facebook. They're there. And so you want to go to fishermanspost.com and look at premium content and find out more about it. The quick of it is right now, a charter membership, $50 gets you a year of weekly fishing reports. And not only a year of weekly fishing reports for $50, but you get to renew year after year. We are going to reward those that come on early and support us in this venture. And then afterwards, after this charter membership expires, it'll be $10 a month, $100 a year. So you want to lock in now for a lifetime, perhaps, of $50 weekly fishing reports. How did I do, Billy?
You did great, Gary. You crushed it, man. And I think for our podcast audience, either your viewer, your listener, maybe both, it's great, because we're going to be doing video and audio behind that wall. And for audio, it's going to be a private feed right to your phone. So just the same way that you consume this podcast, if you're listening to it, you'll be able to do that. And then if you want to watch, you can log in on the website and watch. So not a whole lot of difference, just more like premium content. And, we're doing a lot of work to get the right people at the right time to get that up-to-date information every single week. So I'm pretty excited about the project, Gary, for sure.
Me too.
Awesome, man. Well, dude, we'll see you in the next episode. And once again, you guys go support Aaron and crush it, and support our sponsors, Marine Warehouse Center and Bland Landscaping Co. We really appreciate those guys making this episode happen, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, man.
Fisherman's